Hello again, and this is going to be a video on photosynthesis. In this video, we're going to be looking at what photosynthesis is, where photosynthesis occurs in cells, what chlorophyll is, what the equations of photosynthesis are, what factors affect the rate of photosynthesis, and we're also going to consider the relationship between those limiting factors of photosynthesis and the rate of photosynthesis. As usual, you're going to be filling in the attached worksheet. That just enables you to actually be actively involved in the learning process by having to write material down. It'll aid with your retention of the information that I'm giving you. So the ultimate source of energy for almost all organisms on Earth is the sun, the closest star to us. However, only certain organisms can make use of sunlight in this way. They are photosynthetic organisms like plants. And they use a process called photosynthesis, which is the topic that we are doing in this video. So photosynthesis. So just there you can see a diagram showing how photosynthesis works. And the diagram shows a leaf. It shows the leaf structure, and it shows the process involved in photosynthesis, as well as the chemicals or molecules involved. I've already completed the rest of this worksheet, so I will simply be explaining what I've already written down. So the organelles in plant cells which are responsible for photosynthesis are called chloroplasts. And they appear green in most plants. And the name of the green pigment, what makes chloroplasts green, is chlorophyll. I'll just give you a few more seconds to fill in that information. And then we can go on to the next page. Okay, so on this page, we're looking at the equations of photosynthesis. At the top, we've got the word equation. And the word equation is carbon dioxide plus water forming glucose and oxygen. Oxygen is given off as a waste product, and it could be used by the plant cells for respiration, or it could simply be released into the air. You've also got a formula equation for the process, which is shown there. You've got 6 molecules of carbon dioxide with 6 molecules of water forming 1 molecule of glucose and releasing 6 molecules of oxygen. As I've already said before, all of these reactions or the processes take place in the chloroplasts. As you can see in those equations, we don't mix the elements of those equations together. So what do I mean by that? If you're asked the question in an exam, you would not have the word carbon dioxide along with, say, the formula for water in the same equation. You would have to look out for what the equation is or what the question is asking you to fill in whether it's the word equation or the formula equation. You don't mix them up. Okay, so here you can see a chloroplast, and then the chloroplast zooms in, and you can see the structures within the chloroplast called thylakoids, and the thylakoids have membranes on them, and you can see the chlorophyll. As we've already said, the green pigment used in photosynthesis is chlorophyll. The rate of photosynthesis is affected by various factors. These are known collectively as limiting factors. We'll start off with light intensity. Obviously, light is the energy source for photosynthesis, so it affects the rate at which photosynthesis takes place. But how? Let's look at what the interaction looks like. Okay, so there you've got a graph that shows the relationship between light intensity and photosynthesis, or the rate of photosynthesis. So on the vertical axis, you've got the rate of photosynthesis, and on the horizontal axis, you've got the light intensity. As you can see, there are two sections to this graph. In the first section, as you increase the light intensity, so does the rate of photosynthesis increase. And you can see that that goes on only to a certain point. And then we can go on to the second section of the graph. Eventually, all of the chloroplasts in all of the cells that are photosynthesizing will be doing so as quickly as they can. They cannot get access to all of the other molecules that the plant needs fast enough to make use of any more of the light. And as such, at that point, we've reached the maximum rate of photosynthesis that plant is going to actually achieve if all of the other factors are kept the same. So all you're changing is the light intensity. So I'll give you a few more seconds to read through that and to write it down. Actually, I'll read it out to you. So initially, as light intensity increases, so does the rate of photosynthesis, because there is more energy available. Eventually, the rate stays the same, because all of the chloroplasts are working as fast as they can, whilst the other substances or the other factors involved are kept the same. So that's the relationship with light intensity. Let's look at temperature. So for this graph, you can see that the vertical axis is going to be the rate of photosynthesis again, but the horizontal axis is now temperature. So I'll read through what I've written there. Initially, as the temperature increases, so does the rate, because the molecules move faster. So why are the molecules moving faster? As the temperature increases, there's more energy for the different molecules involved. So they move faster and they're more likely to collide with each other, bringing about a reaction. In the second phase of this graph, you can see that we've reached the maximum rate of photosynthesis. This is described as the point at which you have the optimum temperature. What's the optimum temperature of plants in general? I'll give you a second to think about that question. Well, it was a trick question. It depends on the plant and where it lives and what the usual temperature it exists at is. So different plants will have different optimum temperatures. As you can see in this graph, this plant has an optimum temperature of 37 degrees centigrade. But that can vary depending on the plant. Then we go into the next phase, the third phase. Eventually, you begin to see a drop in the rate of photosynthesis. This is because some of the enzymes involved in photosynthesis begin to change shape, not just the enzymes, but also some of the proteins involved. And as they change shape, they stop working at their optimum levels. And so you begin to see a drop in the rate. And then eventually the temperature is so high that the proteins involved are denatured and the plant just stops photosynthesizing. So you get down to 0. Okay, so I'll give you a few more seconds just to catch up and write down the information. You can, of course, at any point pause or go back in the video to actually give you the opportunity to write down all of the notes. Next, we're looking at the concentration of carbon dioxide. So you can see on the graph that the graph for concentration of carbon dioxide is very similar to the graph we did for light intensity. It has 2 phases. In the first phase, as you increase the carbon dioxide concentration, the rate of photosynthesis also increases. So they're directly proportional to each other. And that's because the more carbon dioxide is available, the greater the amount of photosynthesis, because it uses carbon dioxide. Eventually, you get to the second phase, and in the second phase, all of the chloroplasts are using up the carbon dioxide as quickly as they can. So adding any more carbon dioxide has no effect. So that's the relationship for the concentration of carbon dioxide with the rate of photosynthesis. So we go on to the next bit of the worksheet. So these conditions are described as limiting factors. So basically they are the conditions or factors which control the rate of photosynthesis. They limit the rate of photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is only able to make glucose directly. However, plants need other substances as well. So for example, proteins, lipids, and other substances. These other substances are made by modifying the carbohydrates which are made in photosynthesis. So you can add certain groups on, you can change other groups, you can move around some of the atoms, and then you end up with different molecules. These other substances are made by modifying carbohydrates, as I said, and there are 3 other substances needed for plants to grow properly. So very often on fertilizers, say for instance you grow plants at home in your garden, on fertilizers you will have 3 letters, N, P, and K on them. And these are the most important, or amongst the most important substances the plants need beyond carbon dioxide and water. So you've got N, which stands for nitrogen, which comes from nitrates. You've got P, which stands for phosphorus, which comes from phosphates. And then you've got potassium, K, which comes in the form of potassium salts. So these are the basic bits of information you need as an introduction to photosynthesis. At GCSE, this will be a good introduction to photosynthesis, but you'd want to consider how the factors would affect photosynthesis in a real life situation. So for instance, thinking about greenhouses or something like that. At A level, you would have to go beyond this and look at the biochemistry involved in photosynthesis, as well as the individual steps. I hope you found this quite useful. As usual, we're now going to move on to the summary phase. So let's consider what we've done in this video so far. We looked at what photosynthesis is, basically a method or a process used by certain organisms, for instance plants, to make complex molecules, for instance glucose, from simpler ones like carbon dioxide and water, using energy from light. Then we looked at the organelles that are involved in photosynthesis in plant cells. They're called chloroplasts, and a lot of plants, or most plants, contain a pigment called chlorophyll, which is green, which enables photosynthesis to occur. And then we finished off by looking at the factors which affect the rate of photosynthesis in plants. And the three factors we looked at were light intensity, temperature, and the concentration of carbon dioxide. We describe those factors as limiting factors. As usual, it's always best for you to go back through the video as many times as you need to, and fill and refill the worksheet as many times as you need to eventually get all of this information to sink in and for you to be able to apply it effectively. If you found this useful, please click on the like button below. And if you want to get notified when I put up any new videos, could you click on the subscribe button and the bell icon. So that's it really. I hope you found this useful, and I shall see you in the next video.